Hey guys, this is Mectojic, back with another episode of the Translucent Plastics Archive. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about this keyboard, which is actually one of my favorites. It's the Macally iKey. Now, Macally was a company that, well, as the name implies, was a specialist in Mac-related accessories, and they were around in the early 90s, back when Apple was beige and going through its darker days. But the company continued, and it's still actually alive today. So it's actually one of those companies that has survived all the way for the last 30 years or so, making Mac accessories and peripherals. Now, the iKey is quite an interesting product for a few different reasons. First off, well, let's talk about the design and the number of keys. So this iKey was designed to be, well, a USB-based translucent keyboard that would match the Bondi Blue iMac G3. Of course, the iMac G3 was Apple's first USB product, so that meant that there needed to be USB keyboards for it. And of course, Apple itself did make the Bondi Blue USB keyboard, which you can see here. But what's the problem with this keyboard? Well, it's not the design. The design's quite nice, but it's actually the keys, right? So it's actually missing a few keys, which Apple users and users of any Windows keyboards were used to on 100%, what we call now a 100% keyboard. Full-size arrow keys, full number pad, F function keys up to 15, and importantly a backwards delete key, which I find to be the most important thing that's missing on the Apple USB keyboard, and also home end, page up and page down. You're missing the end key on the USB version. This one is more compact, of course, and that was what Apple was going for with their translucent Bondi Blue aesthetic keyboard, but a lot of users did not like that. So Macally comes in, as they did with many other products, and develops something that would be a better fit for the iMac. They released it, I'm not exactly sure when, but I think it was at least shipping by January of '99. Keep in mind that some of these USB products would be announced, but would take a few months to actually be shipping out. So I imagine that they did announce it a few months or soon after the iMac G3 was announced, but then it still took a little bit of time to get it out onto market. There are a few other things that the iKey did that improved upon the design of the Apple USB keyboard. One of them is the cable length. Now, it's always useful to have a longer cable, and this one I think is 1.8 meters, so it's a full length, which is very good for, especially if you're using towers or if you want to troubleshoot and you're quite a far away from the computer. So it's good for that. It has some things which Mac users expect and which are really useful. One example is here, you've got a translucent blue power button, which turns on any iMac G3 that was before the year 2000, I think, summer 2000. It was a power button on the USB. It also comes with a USB ports for plugging in a mouse or another accessory. So there's one on either side. So it's actually nicely designed the same way as the Apple USB keyboard, coming with two of those. On the back, we get a really nice color here. And we'll find that it actually has feet, which can be flipped up to change the angle. And I prefer this angle much more, and it actually gives you quite a pleasant typing experience. Talking about the typing of the iKey, it's got a very, very nice travel. This is not mechanical. There were mechanical translucent keyboards, and I will talk about some, but this is a rubber dome with Alps-compatible slider domes, right? So it's rubber dome with sliders that are Alps-compatible. So you're not expecting a mechanical touch from this. But honestly, for me, I prefer this over mechanical. It's got a good travel because of those sliders. It's not just pressing into rubber domes, it's pressing onto the sliders first. So you've got quite a good amount of travel. It does feel a little bit compact. The keys are a little bit narrow for what you might expect, but it is something you can get used to. Design-wise, we've got a little bit of that 90s curvature with the spacebar, which sort of just can also be found in the plastic here. And other than that, the entire layout is exactly the same as the old Apple extended keyboard. So we're not expecting anything back in this era like volume buttons or brightness controls or anything like that we now expect media controls. But we do have the full experience that Apple users would already be used to, the extended layout. Now, and that was, of course, the extended layout was a favorite amongst Apple users, so it's something that people were asking for. Now, I think Macally sold this for about $59 US, so it was priced to be affordable. They were never known to be a particularly luxury brand. There were brands that tried to make more premium products, but Macally was always trying to just sell things at a good price. Sometimes people called them cheap Chinese and Chinese junk and so on, but I wouldn't say that they're that bad. The build quality is not bad at all, actually. It feels pretty solid, actually, in my opinion. So the model that I'm showing you right now is this, you could maybe call it blueberry, but I suppose it's Bondi blue. It's sort of a mix between the two. Let's get out that USB keyboard again. You'll see that the colors are not as deep as the Bondi blue. Perhaps this is because Macally didn't actually have the research and development capacity and perhaps the expertise to manufacture a deep enough color. So it does come out a little bit more washed out, a little bit lighter. But honestly, it's not a bad color, and unless you're looking carefully, it's not particularly a bad match to the iMac. You do have the two-tone color scheme, which is very nice, right? So you've got ice on the top, so that blue color doesn't really come through very much when you're looking at it from this side. It only can really be seen on the side profiles, other than the button for the power button, of course. Up here, we've got the num lock, caps lock, and scroll lock. Of course, the num lock and scroll lock only work when you're using a Windows computer, so the caps lock is the only one that works. So that's the iKey. Now, Macally didn't produce the iKey in multiple colors. They just decided to make the one color, which is sort of between a Bondi blue and blueberry. So I suppose they decided just to make this one. And even when the Fruit iMac came out, the 5 colors, they didn't decide to make another color until we get to the Graphite iMac DV, well, iMac Special Edition, and the PowerMac G4. We did get an iKey in graphite, and this is what this looks like. I've got one here. Nothing changed about the design, but we do get a very nice neutral graphite color scheme, which I think is actually very pretty. It really does capture the light in interesting ways. Just have a look at that there. At times it doesn't even look translucent, but then from a side profile you can sort of get a better sense for what color we're talking about here. So yeah, graphite iKey, and you can see that the power button is also graphite there. Just a minor change, nothing drastic, and I think sold for the same price as well. Now, as for the feel of this keyboard, I've already talked about how I quite like it, but let's just have a typing test so you can hear what it sounds like. So there you have it, the Macally iKeys, graphite and I suppose Bondi blue, a blue color. Those were the two models made for the iKey. I hope you found that interesting, and see you in the next episode.